Nobody stop what the Most High put together. We gon' see. In times. Serpents lurking, watchers watching, Yasharala stay on point. They lurking. We under the covenant, we ain't got no other choice. Gird your loins up, armor up, cause it's time for war. We the generation that's gon' get on one accord. Serpents lurking, watchers watching, Yasharala stay on point. We under the covenant, we ain't got no other choice. Gird your loins up, armor up, cause it's time for war.
Why do people deny science?
There are a lot of flat earth Nazis.
Flat earth Nazis?
Yeah. We're talking fringe of the fringe.
How can you say you're not anti-science and yet question?
To say that the preponderance of the evidence weighs against you is the understatement of the century. For example, we have pictures from the moon that show the Earth.
We have video from space.
Pictures from space.
So beautiful, all those pictures of the Earth.
Those pictures are not fake.
Actually, what's going on there, Mr. Johnson?
If you would pardon my expression, I hate to say it, but you sound like you're feeble-minded.
Not everybody can be a robot polisher.
An aspect that I think is tremendously important is those photographs of the Earth alone in space, fragile blue world in this vast blackness, this vacuum, velvety vacuum of space. And it's a very powerful perception.
Are you disputing our astronauts who have seen our beautiful round globe from outer space?
Carnage. Not a word. No one's been to the moon.
Did you know that starting at the end of 2015 through 2017, flat Earth was one of the top search terms in the USA, let alone the world?
YouTube's credit, they have, I think 2019, they started tinkering with the algorithm to delist flat earth videos. They realized we've got a real problem here. And
so we're introducing boxes that provide factual information at the top of results that have shown themselves to turn up a lot of information that is counterfactual, such as searching for the Earth is flat on YouTube. We are already sufficiently motivated to invest the necessary resources and people in addressing this threat.
You can tell it's real because it looks so fake, honestly.
BS about the Earth being flat is getting out of control. Can you please help it?
The Earth isn't flat.
Wow. You just ponder the potential realities of the world and its possible roundness.
Yeah, it's spinning. It's spinning.
The videos were everywhere for 5 years before they tamped down on that algorithm.
Society relies on a division of cognitive labor. We outsource a lot of that knowledge and that skill. And without that, if we can't rely on one another, then we are sort of scared and nervous and responsible for everything on our own. And that's just not sustainable as a society.
And responsible for everything on our own. And that's just not sustainable.
Science, a theory, is a big deal. A way of thinking about a natural phenomenon, for it to reach the level of being called a theory, means that it's been confirmed by a whole series of kinds of evidence. It's the consensus of the scientific community.
There is no consensus in science. Science isn't a vote. Science is about facts.
Any kind of, pseudoscience, anti-vax or flat earth or anything like that.
You're saying everybody else is wrong and you people are the only ones who are right?
Absolutely.
Not everybody can be a robot polisher.
The mistake we made was we didn't catch them fast enough, and we've improved our systems to make sure that we do.
How can you say you're not anti-science and yet question?
Everything here began with questions. It's not okay to say that the Earth is flat. Boldest question the scientists have dared to ask. And it's not okay.
Boldest question the scientists have dared to ask.
Somebody's trying to cover something up.
Absolutely, because if it was so ridiculous, then they would allow the counter narrative and they would allow discourse and discussion.
Mock them, ridicule them in public. Don't fall for the convention that we're all too polite.
Scientism is simply religious beliefs clothed in scientific terms.
They have a belief system that they are starting with,
And they're doing everything they can to force science into agreement with that belief system.
If the erosion rates were true, going back millions of years, these tracks should be disappeared millions of years ago, but they're not.
So why not put these in the museums? Because they vindicate the Bible.
Don't tell me my theory is religious and yours is science. Oh no, sir, they're both religious. Evolution is a religion. So you have to believe.
Mainstream media, when it begins to push a scientific agenda, it consistently is leading people 180 degrees away from Scripture and a personal relationship with our Creator.
Science is a philosophy of discovery. Intelligent design is a philosophy of ignorance. That's all.
And so this is the next step of what we see as the strong delusion.
We despise him. You're being indoctrinated. You have to answer the questions a certain way or you're going to get an F.
Do you get your cosmology from the Bible and what you can observe, or do you get it from these people who admit it is a religion, it is a belief system, it is esoteric philosophy?
You and I are descendants of Martians.
Okay, and that's not crazy. And that's not crazy.
If you take science into consideration, science only works if you have one magical event that no one has to actually have proof for. Everything stems from the Big Bang Theory. Something the size of a pinhead, two atoms connecting, blowing up, and creating everything that's in this universe.
In a millionth of 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 a second, it went from a size smaller than an atom to bigger than a galaxy.
Right, and then Einstein thought of the theory of gravity, which is just a theory. You have the Big Bang Theory, the theory of gravity. So now we have a disbelief for these things. The last thing that you have to think about is religion. So in the Bible, it talks about the sea, there's the sky, there's the firmament. What the firmament is a dome.
It says that in the Bible.
Yeah, there's a firmament, so the dome shaped, the heavens are above it, and then it talks about how the earth expands to its four corners. So that also would make you feel like there could be a flat
move, just like the Bible says. Wake up, Christians. Have discernment. You got to know that NASA is evil. That's why when you take NASA and add a T, it can spell the word Satan. Okay, that's why the NASA's logo is a serpent's tongue. Okay, because NASA is of the devil, and Christians, you got to have Holy Spirit. You got to have discernment. You got to know who the enemy is. And if you're sitting up here laughing at me because I'm telling you the truth, you're the problem. Christians should all know that NASA's full of shit. Every single Christian on this planet should be able to denounce NASA in the name of Jesus Christ. And if they can't, then they've been tricked by the enemy. And I'm not saying you lose your salvation, but when we get to heaven, you ain't going to be laughing at me, buddy. I'm going to be laughing at you. Okay, because I'm telling you right now that NASA's all lying. They're just trying to get you to where you don't believe in God. And that's why the lie of the round earth, the spinning earth that orbits the sun, that's where it comes into play.
I'll play this clip for you. Tell me what you think about this clip.
That's a serpent's tongue right there.
The flat earth theory in the last few days because of rapper B.O.B. and his beef with noted astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson. B.O.B. declared to his Twitter followers that he believes the planet Earth is actually flat and that all the nations of the world have joined together in a massive conspiracy to cover up this fact. Here is how flat earthers believe the universe works. They believe that Earth is a flat disk which looks like this. The North Pole is at the center, with Antarctica forming an ice wall around the outer edges of the disk. This is why flat earthers believe the 1961 Antarctic Treaty was agreed upon by all the world's nations.
That's right.
So no one could reach the edge of the disk. They believe that this is the reason the UN uses this as their symbol. There's also a dome-like barrier called the firmament, which surrounds the disk. This is an impenetrable barrier that keeps the atmosphere intact. Flat earthers do not believe we have ever passed this barrier. According to flat earth theory, gravity does not exist. Instead, they believe in the universal acceleration, believing that all celestial bodies are accelerating upward at a rate of 9.8 meters per second squared.
I don't believe that.
They also believe that Earth is not actually spinning and provide counter evidence to disprove the rotation of the planet, such as the fact that clouds in the atmosphere are not moving at the rate of 1,000 miles per hour, the rate of the Earth's rotation. Flat earthers believe that when Copernicus theorized that the Earth moved around the sun, all of the world's religions decided to accept his theories, and rather than risk being questioned, the world's religions have a vested interest in furthering the Earth globe idea. In turn, flat earthers believe that all imagery from the space program has been faked. Some of the most common pieces of evidence are the
That's
lack
all
of
fake,
direct
you're saying.
commercial
That
flights
NASA
between
moon
two
landing
cities
is all
within
fake.
the southern
Where's the
hemisphere.
stars?
Unfortunately, and we are talking to you, B.O.B., all of these theories don't explain why a ship disappears over the horizon bottom first.
Shit, I can debunk that too. Look, a ship don't disappear over the horizon bottom first. That's a 100% complete lie from Satan, and you can prove that with the Nikon P1000. You can take a ship that has vanished on the ocean, take a P1000, a camera that Nikon sells, and zoom in on that ship and completely see the whole body of the ship once it's out of range of visibility from the eye. So I can tell you right now that's a lie. If you think, oh well, when a ship goes out in the ocean, it disappears bottom first. No, it don't. Use a P1000 and zoom in on it. You'll be able to see a ship that's not visible with the naked eye. Another thing that they was mentioning in there, there's so many things I have. Okay, for example, the picture of NASA with the moon landing. Where's all the stars in the background? You know, it's this simple. They can't fake the constellations. Okay, they cannot fake them, so they just chose rather just black it out and just say, oh yeah, we can't see it because of the sunlight. Here's another thing. Do you see a picture of the Earth from the moon? Do you realize how fake that is? Because do you realize that the Earth is supposedly 6 times bigger than the moon, which in reality, it's a lot bigger than that. The Earth is huge and the moon's very small. But if you believe NASA, the picture of the Earth from the moon should be huge. Do you see what I'm saying? Look at the picture that NASA... Look at that. Do you think that that's what the Earth would look like from the moon? Do you think that that's a real picture? You have to have discernment. When somebody's lying to this degree, they have an evil cause.
Disney and NASA have worked very closely together. Disney worked with NASA on the moon project. Yeah, they made it, they filmed it so that it would be entertaining for the masses. Yeah, and they're still working with NASA. I absolutely believe that Stanley Kubrick, filmed the moon landing. He left a few clues just to say, so that
like Michelangelo.
Yeah, so that we eventually would know that this was his work. Yeah, I did this. It's a joke. It was meant to fool people in 1960s. So you got like clear footprints, but yet you don't have where an impression where the pads of the lunar lander were, or a blast crater where the engines were blasting downwards. And also, the camera followed the capsule straight up, right, and it followed it very precisely. Right, and it stopped when it started to pitch over. Right now, NASA says, "Oh, we did it remotely." Well, there was a 2 or 3 second delay between sending signals and the camera starting to respond, and then another couple of seconds for them to see what's happened. So it's next to impossible to get that sort of accuracy with that kind of, and it's only done once. I mean, they can't sort of keep doing it over and get it right. They do it once and they got it right the first time. So no, it's either they left an astronaut on the moon to film them, or it was fake. It was fake. It was absolutely fake. There's not too many people involved in this. I mean, NASA controls space as such. The other agencies, have popped up. But literally, it's a money-making scheme. NASA makes, hundreds of billions of dollars a year.
Dobra, Rusy.
Okay. The Russians, okay, they're getting in on the act as well. They make money from this. And have you seen the imagery that they put out? The Chinese have put out, or I think it was the Japanese that put out images of Earth from the moon. And it looks even more fake than NASA's ones. It's a money-making scheme, and they're all joining the bandwagon. But yeah, there's more to it, because I believe there's a big deception coming, and it's to do with aliens, because now since Roswell, 1947, that was the first time anybody had ever understood the idea of aliens. But since then, we've been bombarded with science fiction and the idea of aliens, and most people believe there are aliens out there. So they've prepared us for an alien invasion or an alien saviour. And I think the flat Earth came along at the right moment to educate people, to make people believe or understand that we've been lied to. And if you know, as I know in my heart now, that is real and this isn't, I will not be fooled by aliens coming, because there are no aliens. There's no space. Yeah, it's all fantasy by Disney and NASA.
The world is going to gather together to make war with God.
It's scientism versus God. That's what's going on.
If we are faced with a common enemy in outer space, it would indeed help to unite the Earth.
Public fascination with aliens and UFOs surged in the mid-20th century, notably with events such as the Roswell, New Mexico incident and the mysteries surrounding Area 51. This surge was rather timely, coinciding perfectly with the dawn of space exploration. This captivation has endured, continually fueled by a proliferation of space and alien-themed films, along with a continuing cultural preoccupation with UFOs and aliens. Is it possible that the concept of aliens and UFOs was entirely fabricated and propagated to lend further credibility to the existence of outer space? Should a boundary around our Earth be confirmed, as we intend to demonstrate, the entire notion of aliens and UFOs would immediately become purely fictional and obsolete. I believe that any legitimate reports of UFOs or mysterious aerial events which are not based on unsubstantiated claims or ambiguous videos are potentially orchestrated by space agencies like NASA. This is done to promote and reinforce the concept of infinite space, entirely contrary to our contained system, which was discovered. Given NASA's extensive budget, it is certainly possible that considerable resources could be allocated to deceptively stage and simulate encounters or incidents with aliens and UFOs, past, present, and in the future, as part of a broader agenda. Such an agenda could be crafted to effectively unify the world's population by staging a manufactured crisis, specifically a fake alien incident of sorts that necessitates worldwide unity. This would lay the necessary groundwork for creating a single worldwide government and possibly a universal currency, a planned agenda that many have warned of for decades. This could expand the role of an existing international organization such as the United Nations to become the world government, paving the way for a new world order. Historically implemented by rulers and governments for centuries, this is known as order out of chaos. It involves deliberately creating a crisis to force a pre-planned resolution when people are most desperate for it. This agenda might not be as hard to imagine, given that the Latin phrase Novus Ordo Seclorum, New Order of the Ages, has long been inscribed on the US $1 bill, quite synonymous to say the least. It is also noteworthy that the US $1 bill features pagan symbology, such as the all-seeing eye, alongside imagery reminiscent of a pyramid from ancient civilizations. What connection could possibly exist between the United States, ancient pagan cultures, and the all-seeing eye that continues to persist on the US $1 bill to this day? The first moon landing event occurred on July 20th, 1969, when NASA's Apollo 11 mission allegedly landed astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin on the lunar surface, while Michael Collins orbited above in the command module. The official story states that Neil Armstrong became the first human to step onto the moon, followed by Buzz Aldrin. Let us first explore the significant events and key figures that contributed to the inaugural moon landing and subsequent developments. We will then address many concerns regarding the authenticity of this historical event. This will sharpen our discernment and help expose this elaborate psyop that, as of recording this, diverts into itself an astonishing $72 million per day in taxpayer funding. Soon after their historic mission, all 3 astronauts of Apollo 11 resigned. The image from their first television press conference below captures their somber expressions and reflects the overall atmosphere of this mysterious interview.
Let's look at the Apollo 11 post-flight press conference, because this is a weird one. Because these guys just return from the moon, and they look like they're in a hostage video.
Well, they look like they're at the funeral of their mother.
It does not seem like these are happy guys who just returned from the moon. Scooch ahead a little bit. Here we go. So look how nervous they look. Look at Michael Collins fidgeting. And obviously you would be nervous. You're addressing all these people. But it's the tone in which Neil Armstrong takes. And then after this, we're going to show the 25th anniversary speech, which is one of the most bizarre. Yeah, go to him talking. Let's right
over its developing and unfolding.
Go back a little bit. Go back a little bit so you can hear from
It's an adventure.
Here we go.
It was our pleasure to have participated in one great adventure. It's an adventure that took place not just in the month of July, but rather one that took place in the last decade. We all here and the people listening in today had the opportunity to share that adventure over its developing and unfolding in the past months and years. It's our privilege today to share with you some of the details of that final month of July that was certainly the highlight for the 3 of us of that decade. We're going to divert a little bit from the format of past press conferences and talk about the things that interested us most, in particular the things that occurred on and about the moon. We will use a number of films and slides which most of you have already seen, and with the intent of pointing out some of the things that we observed on the spot which may not be obvious to those of you who are looking at them here from the surface of Earth. The flight, as you know, started promptly. And I think that was characteristic of all the events of the flight. The Saturn gave us one magnificent ride, both into Earth orbit and on a trajectory to the moon. Our memory of that actually differs little from the reports that you have all heard from those previous Saturn V flights, and the previous flights served us well in preparation for this flight in the boost as well as the subsequent phases. We would like to skip directly to the translunar coast phase and remind ourselves of the long chain of events that actually permitted a landing, starting with the undockings, the transposition and docking sequence.
This is going to go on for a long time.
Yeah, one interesting thing to note there, you see the 2 teleprompters there in the desk? These are the only guys on Earth who know what it was like to walk on the moon, and yet they're being prompted on how to answer the questions.
They just look very odd. It looks very odd. Another odd thing was that Michael Collins said that he couldn't see stars, but yet he wrote in his 1994 book about how magnificent the stars looked.
And
also, he never left the lunar orbiter.
That's right. And also, when he's asked about stars, Neil Armstrong says, "I don't recall." And then Michael Collins, to fill in for him, to help him out, says, "I don't remember seeing any."
Yeah.
Which he wasn't there. They were all three orbiting the Earth, so they had the same experience, but he forgot. So if you get the written transcript of that, the "I don't remember seeing any," they change it to Buzz saying it. You see, lightning strikes twice in the same place. What a coincidence. First, a typo that says Buzz said it instead of Michael Collins, and then in the video, Michael Collins answering a question he should know nothing about, having not been on the moon surface.
And it gets attributed to Buzz Aldrin because
That's
it's
right.
not convenient. But if you watch the
because
video,
they didn't have YouTube
Right.
videos back then, people got the transcript. They said, we need to correct that.
Right.
Michael Collins wasn't there.
Right.
So they said Buzz said it. So,
yeah,
so they're covering for it.
Let's play the 25th anniversary speech. Because again, this is a speech at the 25th anniversary of NASA, and he's giving this speech to is it American valedictorians, high school valedictorians, like some of the best, brightest high school kids?
When Clinton was president.
Yeah, and so this speech is so bizarre. I've never seen anybody give a rational explanation as to what the hell he is saying, other than he's trying to tell you that something is bullshit. So listen to the speech.
In 1994, Neil Armstrong made a rare public appearance and held back tears as he spoke these brief cryptic remarks before the next generation of taxpayers as they toured the White House.
Today we have with us a group of students among America's best. To you we say, we have only completed a beginning. We leave you much that is undone. There are great ideas undiscovered, breakthroughs available to those who can remove one of truth's protective layers.
Okay, what does that mean? What does that mean?
I think he's trying to say something. You know,
that is one of the most cryptic things I've ever heard anybody say publicly.
You can also notice that he
one of truth's
was looking
protected
down,
layers.
except that part he had memorized. Perhaps someday you'll be able to remove one of truth's protective layers. About the moon landing. How about that?
Bizarre.
As he's holding back tears, in my opinion.
You really like attention, don't you? You're the one who said you walked on the moon when you didn't. Calling the kettle black, if I ever thought of it. Saying I misrepresented myself.
Away from me.
You're a coward and a liar and a thief.
You want me to knock you in the head?
Well, I want you to swear to
Get
God
away
on the
from me.
Bible that you
Get
walked
away
on the
from
moon.
me, okay?
If you walked on the moon, we're given the opportunity to swear to God that you walked on the moon.
I'm going to give you the opportunity to get the hell knocked out of you if you don't leave me alone.
So why don't you just put the end to the record in the argument and put your hand on the Bible, swear to God you walked on the moon.
Mr. Seibel, knowing you, that's probably a fake Bible.
Well, you're talking to the wrong guy. Why don't you talk to the administrator at NASA? We're passengers. We're guys going on a flight.
Of course, I don't hit people, but you're going to be on the deck unless you get
I'm heading out. I appreciate it.
And get the hell out of the black house.
Well, take your stuff and get the fuck out.
Why don't you quote me and say it's bullshit?
I'm in the shadows in the wrong place. I don't give a damn about all that shit.
You're full of shit.
Of lunar orbit being falsified.
Being falsified?
Correct. We got an unedited tape from a source at the Johnson Space Center.
Totally nonsense. Mr. Seibel, you do not deserve answers.
If you show this publicly, you're open for a lawsuit. Okay?
has nobody been to the moon in such a long time?
That's not an 8-year-old's question. That's my question. I want to know, but I think I know. Because we didn't go there, and we didn't go there, and because we didn't go there, and that's the way it happened. And if it didn't happen, it's nice to know why it didn't happen, so in the future, if we want to keep doing something, we need to know why something stopped in the past that we wanted to keep it going.
A stark contrast to the jubilation one would surely expect based on one of mankind's greatest achievements in history. The astronaut's reluctant replies and uneasy behavior, coupled with an atmosphere that many perceive as incredulous, render the interview quite a mystery, resembling a calamity rather than a celebration of three men brimming with pride and enthusiasm. James Webb, NASA's top official, unexpectedly resigned just days before the first Apollo mission launched. This departure was unexplained, and came at a time when he was on the verge of witnessing what would have been the pinnacle of his professional career. An interesting photograph from 1965 shows NASA's George Mueller, on the right, visiting the MGM studio, where film producer Stanley Kubrick, second from the right, was preparing to shoot the famous space movie 2001: A Space Odyssey. Also visible in the photograph are Arthur C. Clarke in the middle, a British science fiction writer, and Professor Teofilo Tabanera of the Argentine Space Concession following behind. Many find this photograph to further assert a studio-based moon landing. All original Apollo 11 slow-scan television tapes, which allegedly contained the raw footage and telemetry data of the 1969 moon landing, remain entirely lost to this day. Even more suspicious, NASA later erased and recorded over other key tapes that allegedly held the original high-quality video recordings of the moonwalk, citing a supposed shortage of magnetic tapes during the 1970s and 1980s.
I mean, they say all the footage of the original moon landing was lost.
You know what they think happened to the original moon tapes? Is they might have been taped over. It's not a cassette, it's not an old mixtape from college.
We've been unable to track it down.
And as I said, even if we had it, we don't have the machines to play it back.
It's incredible that we can keep track of Egyptian pots from 2,000 years ago, but we lose tapes made only 40 years ago.
So we lose all the footage, and all the technology was destroyed.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology.
How can we reasonably accept that more than 50 years after the last moon landings in 1972, the technology from a far less advanced era is now beyond recovery? With its substantial resources and government backing, how could NASA face difficulties in procuring magnetic tapes to safeguard the epic footage of their first lunar voyage? The loss of such critical historical material is all the more perplexing. Surely, public or private entities could have even donated magnetic tapes to preserve this historic achievement. Many publicly available photos, allegedly taken from the lunar surface, intentionally obscure the true source of light, rendering it completely blocked out from view. This consistent pattern, where a strong light source is present in almost all similar photographs, clearly obscures the true origin of the illumination, whether it is truly the sun or artificial stage lighting. This deliberate obfuscation fuels further speculation about the actual source of light in these photographs. We also find instances where an astronaut's suit is brightly lit, even though it is on the side opposite from the sun and completely shadowed by the lunar module. This discrepancy raises questions about how the rear side of the lunar lander and the astronaut can appear fully illuminated while also being fully engulfed in the lander's shadow, given that the sun is the only light source that should be on the moon. Another obvious example of the presence of multiple light sources in these photographs is evidenced by the extreme difference in shadow directions. The significantly divergent shadow directions cannot be simply attributed to an optical illusion of perspective, as many NASA supporters posit, especially to the degree of divergence we see. Another highly scrutinized aspect of the 1969 lunar module's descent onto the moon's surface is the complete absence of a blast crater or any disturbance beneath its landing site. The thruster of the module was said to produce 10,000 pounds of thrust, while again, no imprint, scorching, or any remnant whatsoever of this unimaginable heat and thrust was left under the lunar module, not even dust or debris on the landing pads. Further evidence that the 1972 moon landing was an elaborate hoax, as well as the 1969 moon landing, is found in an image that captures raindrops, each forming streaks of identical length due to the camera's shutter speed, perfectly aligned and descending at identical angles. This was NASA's very last photograph taken from the moon. Was the studio production rained out, so to speak? As many are aware, an endless multitude of collective evidence could be presented to challenge the authenticity of the moon landings, yet such an in-depth analysis lies beyond the scope of our overall goal. The moon landing controversy alone would span numerous volumes, given the extensive information available and all of the skeptical hindsight we have accumulated up to modern day. A leaked videotape from the Apollo 11 mission shows the 3 astronauts using the command module's circular window to fabricate false images of a spherical Earth. They also used a sheet of paper to create the illusion of a Terminator line, which marks the division between night and day. By darkening the cabin lights, the exterior walls of the window mimicked the blackness of space, thus producing the illusion of a spherical Earth captured from a distance. The astronauts captured only a small portion of the Earth through the circular window, where clouds mingled with land, producing these misleading images. Recordings of their communications with Mission Control discuss, quote, refining the realism of images in post-production. Most important, the command module's circular window was deliberately used to crop more of the Earth's surface from view. These deceptively cropped images imply that more of the Earth was not captured outside of the circular window. Consider the implications here. We have been taught that Earth is spherical, but a complete, unobstructed image of Earth was never captured from the command module. Instead, what we see is only a partial view of Earth, framed by the command module's circular window, and artificially enhanced with a simulated Terminator line to increase realism. Many public images that purport to show the Earth from the moon's surface have been exposed as fallacious composites, created by superimposing falsely produced photographs of a spherical Earth onto separate photographs of a lunar surface. The credibility of NASA imagery is further called into question by an interview with NASA's senior program analyst who is responsible for creating Blue Marble 2.0. Robert Simon states that complete photographs of Earth do not exist. What we see are digitally crafted composites. He further adds, it is photoshopped, but it has to be.
Right? All the pictures that they take of the Earth are composite images, so no images that we see are actually ever a camera from real far away looking at the Earth. Wait, what do you mean? They're all composite images, because they can't just get it all in one shot, so they have to go around the Earth and take a bunch of pictures, and then they piece it together.
International Space Station residents only see about 3% of Earth's surface at any one time.
If you zoom in on them, there's cloud formations that repeat several times, which, how could that ever really happen? They're just copying and pasting things.
There's a small problem with it because there's a very slight gap in between each orbit. It is photoshopped, but it's has to be.
Displayed here is a series of official NASA Earth images spanning from 1972 to 2015. These images display several noticeable inconsistencies, including variations in the sizes of continents. When viewed in color, at high resolution on NASA's website, they strikingly resemble cartoons.
Has to be.
That's one thing that builds distrust, because you have to have distrust of who's giving you your information to feel like maybe the flat Earth is feasible, right?
Images of Earth are constructed using datasets, multiple strips of satellite images pieced together to produce what appears to be a realistic depiction of Earth. This further solidifies doubts about the authenticity of photographic evidence from the Apollo 11 mission. How can we place any real trust in these images, or any others, when NASA's own senior program analyst admits that there are no complete photographs of the Earth? The Telegraph, on August 29, 2009, reported, "Curators at Amsterdam's Rijksmuseum, where the rock has attracted tens of thousands of visitors each year, discovered that the lunar rock, valued at £308,000, was in fact petrified wood." The rock was given to Willem Dries, a former Dutch leader, during a global tour by Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, and Edwin Buzz Aldrin, following their moon mission 50 years ago. NASA gave moon rocks to more than 100 countries following lunar missions in 1969 and the 1970s. The United States Embassy in The Hague is carrying out an investigation into the affair. Are you aware that every NASA rocket launch in history follows an arcing trajectory, curving back down toward the vast expanse of the ocean, rather than actually ascending into space? To date, no space agency has ever presented video evidence of a rocket ascending in a continued vertical trajectory beyond low Earth orbit and into deep space. This absence of footage is attributed to our new understanding that a direct upward course would expose the boundary of our contained world upon contact. This continued practice should now begin to reveal that NASA and other space agencies only create the appearance of rockets heading into space. In reality, their trajectories always curve downward soon after launch, eventually returning to Earth, consistently over the open ocean, as observed in every rocket launch in history. The only exception to this were the rockets involved in Operation Fishbowl, mentioned earlier, which were part of an effort to investigate the limits of the Earth's upper bounds through a series of detonations impacting against it. This consistent practice prevents extended observation of the rocket's true trajectory, leaving unresolved whether the rocket is actually heading into outer space or merely arcing toward a predetermined splashdown in the ocean, thereby perpetuating a deceptive portrayal of an authentic space launch. This notable omission is difficult to rationalize, especially considering that since 1969, not a single space agency has documented such an event. Video recordings of launches always terminate shortly after liftoff, just as the rocket begins its predictable downward trajectory toward the ocean. We might begin to realize that the only thing ever sent to space has been our imagination. Throughout the history of space exploration, the release of an uninterrupted video capturing a rocket's complete ascent into space could have decisively demonstrated that no physical barrier hinders access to space. Such evidence would have dispelled any notion that rockets are merely returning to restricted ocean areas as part of a deceptive act.
If you watch the trajectory of the space shuttle, it doesn't go straight up. It always goes in a curve and out to sea. The point is that they actually go horizontal. The space shuttle goes horizontal. It never goes any further up. It goes horizontal, very, very low down in the atmosphere, because it drops its external tank while it's still in the atmosphere. So you know it's still in the atmosphere while it's horizontal, so it never gets any higher, and it goes out of sight, not because it goes too high, because it goes too far downrange. And it seems that nobody's ever on the space shuttle, and the proof of that is the Challenger disaster. In I believe it's 1986, the Challenger exploded just after takeoff and killed 7 astronauts. But it turns out that 6 of the astronauts are still alive, and most of them are using their original names. And you can find pictures of them. They're using the same names, and they're doing ordinary jobs now. Teachers, lecturers, lawyers, whatever. But they're still alive. I think it's a mock-up. I think it's an empty shell, and literally just dishes in the sea.
Behavior of amateur rockets as they ascend to higher altitudes is both remarkable and significant to our discussion, particularly as they demonstrate clear interactions with this upper boundary in question. Unlike rockets launched by NASA and other space agencies, which always follow a deliberate arcing trajectory back toward the Earth, amateur rockets ascend directly upward. In 2014, Go Fast Sports launched a rocket that broke world records for altitude and speed. Intriguingly, the rocket abruptly halted at 73.1 miles in altitude, as if caught in quicksand, without any explosion or visible damage. This sudden stop clearly revealed an interaction with an unseen boundary. Surprisingly, the rocket was neither destroyed nor visibly damaged, and successfully reached an orbital phase. In 2017, SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket grazed along a mysterious upper layer, creating an effect similar to gliding on a liquid surface, complete with visible ripples and waves. The following images document the event, displaying a trail that resembles rippling water streaming behind the rocket. This visual phenomenon manifests upon contact with the mysterious boundary, showing no prior signs of this effect before impact. In countless video interviews, allegedly from the International Space Station, female astronauts are clearly seen to have their hair rigidly set, presumably by hairspray, as it springs back to its original position with each movement of their head. This lack of natural free-flowing movement stands in contrast to what one would anticipate in an authentic zero-gravity setting of space. Despite several rigorous head movements, the astronaut's hair snaps back to its original position from the start of the interview, as if it were on springs, instead of drifting freely as one would surely anticipate in the zero-gravity environment of space. Why would there be a need to orchestrate such an effect when untethered, free-floating hair would naturally occur in a low-gravity setting? If stray hair were a practical concern, simple solutions such as wearing a NASA-branded hat or tying the hair back in a bun or ponytail would suffice. Instead, NASA constructs the illusion of a weightless environment in a way that is so unconvincing even a child would question its authenticity. Numerous instances have been documented in publicly available videos where air bubbles emerge from astronauts' suits during alleged spacewalks on the ISS. Additionally, reflections in astronauts' visors reveal a scuba diver complete with an oxygen tank operating a video camera. On July 16, 2013, an astronaut's helmet filled up with water during an alleged spacewalk, involving Italian astronaut Luca Parmitano. This clearly reveals that spacewalks are not from space, but quite evidently from NASA's Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory in Houston, Texas. This massive underwater training facility, housing an ISS replica, is designed to simulate the zero-gravity environment of space. Many public NASA videos display unmistakable anomalies. The following appears to show a genuine video interview from the ISS. However, a subsequent extended video glitch clearly exposes the use of a separate video layer onto which the astronauts have been superimposed onto a separate ISS video layer background. Many public ISS video interviews clearly show outlines and impressions of harness wires on astronauts' clothing, particularly during stunts such as rolls or flips, clearly indicating their use for artificial support. In other videos, these harnesses are left visible, assuming a failure of video editing techniques intended to conceal them. While our low-resolution images may not clearly reveal these details, the abundance of online videos makes the deception unmistakably evident. On August 23, 2023, India supposedly landed on the moon. As expected, the public only sees the initial launch footage from this significant lunar mission, Live coverage was immediately discontinued moments thereafter. This again demonstrates that, to this day, there is no continuous video documentation available of any journey to the moon, even in our most modern technological era in history. Incredible video footage that would have captivated audiences worldwide remains mysteriously unreleased. Subsequently, the only photographic or video representations of the lunar lander and command module released later to the public, and not live, were poorly produced computer-generated images of merely cartoon quality at best. Accompanying these were low-resolution and dubious short video clips showing the module hovering over the moon, characterized by unsteady and very poor frame rates. The following official images are from the Chandrayaan-3 mission that purport to evidence this voyage to the moon that once again a child can quickly discern as entirely fallacious. Remarkable, given that this is all that is provided to us during an era of unparalleled technology. In January 2019 and June 2024, the Chinese Space Agency allegedly landed their probes on the moon. For both of these missions, the public was only shown the launch, with no subsequent video footage of the journey to the moon or images of the Earth during the ascent into space. Given China's status as a technology powerhouse, the absence of visual documentation and coverage from these missions is confounding. The only visuals provided were generic scenes from a mission control room filled with applause. All available images and videos, including those purporting to show the lunar lander on the moon, are of such poor computer-generated quality that even the least discerning eye can quickly recognize their inauthenticity. The few images provided that depict the moon's surface lack any semblance of authenticity, even at first glance. Can we finally confront the reality of our blind and trusting acquiescence to such deceitful fabrications? We have become too complacent, settling for the absolute minimum, a fleeting headline, the sight of a rocket climbing the sky, and a handful of dubious images alleged as evidence. This is an affront to the public's intelligence, and their entitlement as taxpayers to an acceptable level of proof of such alleged monumental space endeavors. Could our enchantment with the concept of outer space play a part, fueled by dreams of moon bases and interstellar tourism? Is it the allure of space exploration, amplified by the science fiction of Hollywood, that has us so blindly trusting to believe such sparse evidence without innate skepticism?
Christoph, let me ask you, why do you think that Truman has never come close to discovering the true nature of his world until now?
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
He gon' send his hand, destruction gotta come, that's how he get us out this lane. The devil working hard, trying to get us out his plane. His sheep hear his voice, so he can't get us out his hand. We gon' trust the son of man, blow your wings, Father. Your kingdom coming, we just trying to make it in, Father. Rather we